Nobody sleeps perfectly every single night. It's completely normal to go through periods of sleep disruption. I think the reason that a lot of people get so anxious and so stressed is they believe that they are the only person who is struggling to achieve a restful night's sleep. So in today's video, you can expect to learn from me 7 scientifically backed tricks, hacks, habits, call them what you will, but they are simple to implement and they will give you that slightly better chance of achieving 7 to 9 hours of blissful, restful, regenerative, recuperative sleep. But first, my name is Danny Wilson. I am a sleep and health performance coach based in the UK. I take people on a transformational journey from overweight, stressed out, and tired to lean, energized, and highly motivated every single day. And the most attractive part of this for you is I achieve this result without any kind of restrictive diet or silly, overcomplicated workouts. Let's get into it. The first easy to implement tip that I'm going to give you, it's simply regularity. Going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time every single day is the most effective way that you can maintain the correct functioning of your body's internal clock. And yes, when I say every day, I mean 7 days a week. Next up, we're going to be talking about light exposure. More specifically, exposing your eyes to natural light as soon as you can first thing in the morning. What this is going to do, this is going to dial in the accuracy of your body's internal clock. See, this is what happens. You go out into the natural light, senses in your eyes called melanonin detect the light, they send a signal into the brain, and then that signal starts the machine, starts the human factory for the day. Meaning that 12 to 14 hours later, when it gets dark, your body is going to start to settle down and go to sleep. The next thing we're going to talk about is the exact opposite of what we just have spoke about, and that is darkness. So just like in the morning, melanonin cells in the eyes detect the light. If we flip that around, when it starts to get dark, the same cells, they detect the lack of light and then they send a signal to the brain. That then encourages a release of a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is what gets the entire body ready for sleep. So limiting light exposure in the later hours of the day, especially in the 90 minutes before you go to bed. This is when we want to be dimming the lights, and this is when we want to be putting our phones and putting our laptops away, reducing the amount of light that goes into our eyes. Next up, we're going to be talking about temperature. In order for the body and the brain to initiate sleep, it requires a drop in temperature of about 1 degrees Celsius. This is required for the body to initiate sleep and in turn to stay asleep, which is why it's always a lot easier to get to sleep in a cold room than in a hot room. If you imagine how difficult it is to sleep when the weather is very, very hot outside, it's because the body is struggling to drop down to a temperature low enough to initiate sleep. Once we've initiated sleep, it's important that we maintain the temperature of the room at about 18 degrees centigrade in order for us to stay asleep. Which moves us on to what happens if you don't stay asleep? What happens if you wake in the night due to an overactive mind and then you are struggling to get back to sleep? The recognized general advice in this instance is to actually get out of bed, go to a dimly lit room, maybe read a book, maybe meditate, maybe do something that's incredibly calming in very, very low light, and then only go back into bed when you start to feel really, really sleepy. The reason that we want you to remove yourself from your bed is the brain is incredibly associative. And what we don't want is we don't want the brain to start associating being in bed with wakefulness. We want the brain to associate being in bed with sleepiness. The next thing that we're going to talk about is alcohol and caffeine. Now, it's super, super, super important. If you've watched any of my other content around sleep, you will have heard me talk about the different phases of sleep. Deep sleep being the more physically recuperative, and REM sleep or dream sleep being more emotionally repairing. The issue that we have with alcohol and caffeine, alcohol will inhibit the amount of REM sleep that the brain is able to generate, which means that your mood is going to suffer the next day, and moving on and on and on. And then if we flip that around to caffeine, not only is caffeine a stimulant, as in it encourages wakefulness, it also reduces the body's ability to slip into the deeper phases of sleep. The deeper phases of sleep being more in tune with physical repair and physical regeneration. So if you are exercising hard and always feel tired and sore, and that's possibly because you're not getting enough deep sleep, which means that ideally we want to start looking at reducing your caffeine. When we flip that around, if you find that you are always flying off the handle, incredibly emotional, getting upset at everything, shouting at your kids, shouting at your wife, that's probably because you're not getting enough REM sleep. So it's very important that you don't go to bed tipsy, and it's very important that you have a solid cut-off time when it comes to caffeine. Me personally, I don't have any caffeine at all after about 9:30, 10 o'clock every single day, and I find that's long enough for the caffeine to have left my brain and to stop having the wakefulness effect. Finally, last up, everybody talks about the morning routine. Everybody talks about the importance of starting the day with the right energy, in the right mood, from the right place. Not a lot of people talk about the other end of the day and finishing the day in a fantastic place. The reason that the majority of people struggle with sleep is they have no preparation. They have no wind down time, so they just get into bed and expect to sleep with no preparation. An incredibly simple evening routine could be no food for 3 hours before you go to bed, a hot bath 2 hours before you go to bed, and then 1 hour before you go to bed. That's when you cut all your screen time, you put your phone away, you put your laptop away, you dim all the lights. Remember, we spoke about exposure to light and darkness being massive drivers of sleepiness. These are things that you can implement every single evening to tell your body that it's time to go to sleep. Now, as with everything that I talk about, I can give you as much information as you can possibly listen to, as you can possibly take in, as you can possibly absorb. It's on you to now go ahead and implement the information which I give you. If this is something that you have found incredibly useful, if you hit subscribe, it's going to do us both a favor. It's going to up my subscriber count. It's going to get my message out. It means that you are not going to miss anything that I put out. I'd like you to share this with someone who continually talks about their struggles when it comes to achieving a restful night's sleep. I look forward to catching you in my next video. Enjoy the rest of your day.